Let's go ahead and get started, I guess, and if more folks join us, they'll just have to jump in where we're at. Good morning or afternoon, whatever this is anymore. I can't tell. Thanks for joining us again. Welcome everybody. You've got an agenda that's that Kendra had sent out, so thanks for sending that, Kendra. Joe and I met this afternoon and had a thought that we wanted to run, a concept we wanted to suggest to the group here today, which was to, instead of necessarily voting on designs, excuse me, instead of voting these designs up or down, which we would effectively have to do as they are presented, what we thought might be the most beneficial in the interest of trying to come to some level of consensus here was to take feedback on each of the top 6 designs and contact the designers, see if they would be willing to make whatever design recommendations we ultimately decide on today, and then we vote on those designs next week. That really would allow us the opportunity to see designs that, you know, we've seen the original concepts here, but perhaps there's tweaks, perhaps there's little additions that we can make to make each of these designs a bit more palatable to other folks. Joe, I see your hand. If you, yeah.
You said next week. You mean next month?
Yep, next month. Next month. Sorry. Yeah, we ain't running it back that fast. So yeah, we would take notes, pretty vigorous notes today on each of the top 6 designs, and send those over, those notes to the designers. Give them a couple of weeks. Give us a week to review those 6 designs. Score them in a similar fashion to what we did with this last batch of 42, and then hopefully be able to come to, even if we don't come to a full consensus on which one is, maybe we don't come to a 12-0 vote. In all honesty, that's probably unrealistic, but I think that we can ensure that even designs that folks don't ultimately vote for still have some level of input, which I think can be beneficial as we move past this process into really implementing the new design. So does that concept work for everybody, to discuss what we would want to see tweaked on each of these designs, and then make those recommendations to the artists and see what comes back? Not to delay this thing anymore. I know we're all eager to get it squared up, but seems like it might make some sense.
Avis, this is Tim.
Yeah.
Is it possible, or have you planned to put, can we get all 6 designs, finalist designs, up on one screen? Is that possible?
Yep. Kendra's got those. She's going to put them up on the screen for us as soon as we ask her to here. So we've got the letters, the sort of coding for each of those. So Kendra, if you could, I know Kendra doesn't have the ability to sort of communicate back and forth with us, but if we can, Kendra, if we can pull up the Excel file that had all of the scores. And then if you want to probably go to that tab at the bottom, that's the combined top 6. So what we've got here are 6 designs. Kendra, if you can scroll all the way up on that, just so we can catch the header. Perfect. So we've sort of got, at this point we can just say we've sort of got two different groups and two different perspectives that comprise this committee. And so you'll see Group A average scores. You'll see Group B average scores. That's in cell S and V. You'll see where those rank in comparison within each group. Really, the main ones I think to focus on today are the average score and overall ranking on the left, so that O and Q column. So those designs are designs 26, 22, 109, 34, 107, and 59. Those all sort of ranged between 6.6 and 6.8, almost 6.9. Some of those, if you look over to those other columns, you'll see that there were some of them had a really wide spread, right? That, for instance, number 26, it was the 37th most, the 37th highest ranked design from Group A, but it was number one design from Group B. So some of them, there were a pretty sizable spread. On others, if you look at design 107, that's the second ranked design. It was the sixth highest design from Group A, and the ninth highest design from Group B. So there was some closeness there. I'll admit I was a little surprised to see any of the designs coming in with both groupings having it in their top 10. So there might be some commonalities here. Kendra does have all of the files, so I wanted to just sort of point out these six. These were, if you look in column Q, these were our top 6 designs. We'll go ahead and Kendra, if we could have you queue up that the WPD 34 image. Actually, Kendra, I don't know if you're able to queue up all of the images on the same screen or not. So this is so this was the design that the cumulative score came out to 6.88. So the concept here on for today's discussion would be, and I think we take a look at all of these, and then we come back and ask for input from both sides on how we might be able to do some tweaks here. So, and actually, Kendra, I'm going to send you an image that has all of the designs in one quick shot. That's probably going to be the easiest versus trying to toggle between a ton of different images. 1 second. All right, Kendra, that is just sent from mine, so you should get it here in a second. So this will hopefully be a little easier for all of us to just look at all 6 designs. And then we can pull them up individually and discuss in some greater detail what we'd like to see tweaked, changed. I can go through some of the comments in each of these as well, which I think will be helpful. There we go. So these were the top 6. These are not in any particular order, but these were our top 6 according to the scoring rubric that we used. Some of those, like I mentioned earlier, had a little bit more commonality. Some of those were a pretty wide divide. But hopefully we'll be able to give some constructive feedback on each of these designs, shoot that over to designers, and hopefully be able to create something in each of these designs that has at least some shared perspective, and hopefully make each of them stronger entries. So
Mr.
with
Hall,
that, yeah.
is it okay if I talk and give some feedback?
Absolutely.
This is Spencer again. Now, just seeing the 6 designs here now, as far as the 22, 26, and the 34 goes, it's my understanding that those are all from the same artist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also my understanding that that person is willing to change up color schemes. Now, I quite aggressively sought feedback from my peers on designs that they could be proud of, given the changes that we're seeing. I saw a pretty common theme amongst the officers that I polled, that the designs similar to 22, 26, and 34, consistently garnered the most interest. So I think it would be, a great idea to be able to change some colors around, because I think number 26 may have been the favorite. And I know that there may be a hurdle with having a red griffin, and for us to have some compromise. So, in the spirit of compromise, I think that would be a great start if we could have some different color schemes, something that's maybe not the color of 26, but has some variation of that. Really liked that vigilance is still in there. A lot of guys are very proud of that. And this really achieves what we were originally, in my understanding, trying to do, is tame down the griffin so it doesn't have that same feel to it. I think that does that. And without, obviously 26 has that same color, but that's, if we're talking about changing colors, I think that's a great starting point. And that's something that I know the police officers that I spoke with, I think could still be proud of.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think we should really go through all of these. I would say that and maybe Councilwoman Jewin, who made the motion that effectively established the committee, can speak to it better than I can. But the intent of the committee was to establish the rebrand, and while we would give first consideration to a redesigned Griffin, the intent of this committee was not to redesign the Griffin. It was to establish the brand. And that might seem like semantics, but though I think those words do matter, because it's not as if it has to be a Griffin. That is simply the first consideration as made in that motion that established the committee. But Sharon, or sorry, Councilwoman Jewin, if maybe you wanted to speak in on that one.
I think you said it well, Tavis. We just asked in deference to the pride that the police department had in a Griffin and what a true Griffin really symbolizes and what it looks like. The Griffin that is on the current patch, it doesn't necessarily represent to a lot of people what the mythology of a Griffin is, which is a lion and an eagle, and to some the other patch look more like a dragon. So this is in the minds of many incorporating what the true mythology of a Griffin is, which again is a lion and an eagle, and it is a noble creature in Greek mythology. So you're right, we ask that the first consideration be given to a true Griffin, but it doesn't have to be a Griffin. It has to be what the committee can agree to. So.
Mr. Hall, if I can respond, I just in part for that. I totally understand what the resolution says. I'm only just giving feedback on what I've received on those images that I articulated. I'm open to hear any feedback from any of the other images as well from committee members.
Yeah, and I think once we can start sort of going through these designs. A couple of those are very close in nature. I think it's 22, 26, and 34 are incredibly close in nature, and so we may not have a ton of different conversations there. But I think it's a good place to start. The number one overall ranking, the average score was 6.88, was that design 34. So Ken, that's the one with the blue Griffin with a yellow background. Kendra, if you're able to pull that file up, WPD 34, that way we can see that one in closer view.
Hey,
All right.
can I share, people that have contacted me are very adamant that they definitely don't want to see anything red. And some people expressed that they would just rather see something that represented Waterloo and not even have a Griffin altogether. And so I know a lot of people are passionate about what we do. But again, when something symbolizes one thing to one group and something else to another group, and history has shown us what has happened to the other group, then I understand where they're coming from because I'm a part of that other group. And so when we watched a presentation from some UNI students that researched the history, and these were white and Black students, and they presented things that many of us had no knowledge of. And so the origins of the Griffin was not about being vigilant and protective or any of those things. And so, I commended the young people for taking on that challenge and presenting that information. They actually showed a video at our meeting. And so again, speaking on behalf of the people that do not want to see a Griffin, period, and I know we were charged with, looking at first the redesign and then, selecting something else. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay.
So I think for the
Sorry, I was just kind of in the middle of a meeting, and I wasn't sure if you knew everything.
oh, sorry, we can maybe.
Okay.
I only got it listed as Waterloo resident, but if you could mute your There you go. Thank you. Appreciate it. So I think, in terms of just getting through this, I think it's probably most beneficial if we take each design that's on the screen and we talk from both perspectives of what things we might want to see tweaked, specifically to maybe gain insights, potentially gain support and build consensus. Again, recognizing that not every design is going to be perfect. Almost certainly none of these designs are going to get 100% approval. But what can improve upon each of these designs, specifically from sort of the quote unquote other side. So looking at this design, do we have some thoughts as a group as to some potential edits just to start the conversation here?
Davis, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Just for perspective, can you put our current design up next to it?
We will see if Kendra is able to do that. I'm not sure if she's got that one up.
Hey, Kendall, this is Rhonda. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I know the patch that Sergeant Gann was talking about, as far as the color scheme and everything, but the actual layout of the patch design is not quite the same as what we have. So yeah, if we can get a comparison, because even I know Major Libo talked about having the patch the same design, or not the same design, but the same size as our current patch. That's going to save some costs. But the one that you guys were talking about, it just looks like the size itself is a little different than the size of our current patch. And I think the one that looks a little bit close to us is the one that actually has the badge on, and I think it was under 34 when you displayed it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm not sure if maybe Kendra, if you can maybe just signify in the chat if you're able to pull the current insignia up. Again, I apologize. Kendra doesn't have the microphone. Doesn't have a mic, so. Kendra does not have the current one. I will see if I can't pull that up and send that to you, Kendra. Rhonda, to that point, I think, one of the things, I think what we probably pitch to these designers is to send us a design that can be placed in the patch shape is probably the best way to put it. So
Okay.
that, if you look at the current police cars, they don't have an actual patch shape on the car. They still have the elements though of the insignia. And so I think that they're all in the general shape. They might need to have some basic modifications. I know Aaron's a little bit more in tune with sort of that strict design side. There we go. Thank you, Kendra. Aaron, if you could maybe speak to just the ability to ask the artist to craft it in a way that can be placed within the
Sure.
The truth is we never actually released the specifications of the patch, right? Like we never put out measurements or said this is the exact ratio of inches or anything. So we didn't really give them a size. So I think what Tavis is saying is absolutely right. Like they're just trying to give an approximation of the shape without knowing the exact measurements and kind of showing us what could go inside of that. Does that answer, or? Or did you want me to say anything else, Tavis?
I think that that's about right. Of course, we could. The designer would ultimately submit the design, and we secure that. And
Right. And so just a note, like, I took a look at some intellectual property right laws, just to see like what the committee has the right to do with these designs. And in a nutshell, what it basically comes down to is we can't change any element of the design without the artist's agreement, right? So kind of like what Officer Gann was saying, that he knew that this artist was willing to make adjustments, and we're going to have to ask each of the artists if they're willing to make adjustments, and they do have the right to say no. So we just need to know as a committee that we can't really pick it apart without forgetting that the artist has the right to veto that. Right. So in a certain sense, we need to judge what is, but clearly with designs 26, 22, and 34 being the same designer and using one image and then showing us different things that can go around that image, like that's a very good indication that they would be willing to work with us. Right.
I think it's important, but I do think it's important to note that today's process is going to be about making recommendations on edits. So we're not necessarily picking them apart. We're simply providing feedback to the artist, and the artist can elect to move forward and make the changes as we recommend, or they can say that they're not comfortable, and then we'll vote on those represented designs prior to next month's meeting.
Exactly.
Davis?
Yeah.
Can I, maybe I'm getting us off track and I apologize, but I was intrigued with what LaTanya said and thought it might be helpful for the rest of the committee. I have not seen that video she was talking about, and I got a little confused. Was she saying that that group of students came together with the history of the existing patch, or were they coming together with the history of what a griffin stands for? If she could clarify that, that might be helpful to some members.
Hi, Sharon. It was what it actually stands for, and yeah, it's really
what a griffin actually stands for, LaTanya?
Yes, and the original origins of what it means.
Okay, so the existing badge, not what a griffin.
This one that's on right now. This one that's showing right now.
Okay, but not what a griffin stands for in Greek mythology, because they're very different.
Can I interject here for just a second? Because LaTanya, I've seen the video. And I think something needs, and I don't know where a disconnect is with what people think a population of our community's perception is. We all went through Waterloo schools. We're aware of what a griffin is. We know it's a mythological creature. Community concern is not what it is. It was how it was presented during the riots that occurred in our town. It was not a protective symbol. We are all fully aware of what the mythological creature means, but this badge in itself has history that one population it was used to terrorize and another it was not. And if you were not part of that population, you may not have that history. But I know for my father, this is no different than showing someone who's Jewish a swastika, or the symbol on a KKK flag, or the Confederate flag for him, because of what he experienced during the riots that occurred in this community. So I just wanted to add that in. And I want to see where we were to where we're going side by side next to each other, so that if we make a decision to go with a griffin, that we haven't put a spin on, here's a griffin. It still means the same thing to that community, no matter what color you change it to, because that's what it was used to do. So if we do make a decision, because there's even another griffin that's not with this design that I see, there's 4 griffins, if I'm not mistaken. I just want to make sure we're all clear on what the history is for that population that I am a member of. And where that hurt lies, it's no different than the fact that we now have a product formerly known as Aunt Jemima that hit the news this morning. So.
And I'm just looking for clarification for myself, Teresa. I appreciate that. So I understand that the history is with the current design. It is not necessarily, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. It is not with the Greek griffin. Is that fair to say? It is with the current design, right?
I guess I would take that a step further. Can you redesign a noose?
Thank you. Thank you.
Because that's what we're being asked to do. So when we have the same picture, essentially, and I'm sorry, for me, those three that we're talking about right now are the same griffin. But there is another griffin badge that there were several of them where it wasn't the full-bodied griffin, where it wouldn't have the same meaning. Because I talked to several people when I did my voting and said, you know, one of the ones that was in the top 10 is also on this group, and it is a griffin. But I just want to be very clear on what we're talking about here, because we're essentially for the Black community, we are redesigning a noose. And are you okay with showing the same picture of a noose on our next badge? And I don't know if somebody else can make it any more clear, but I mean, you can probably tell from my voice, it's a very passionate topic.
Dave, it's Marcus Harrington, if I could.
Yeah.
I was under the impression from the very beginning, like a lot of people were, you know, going back to when everybody showed up to the courthouse and was giving their opinions, that the issue with the patch is it resembles a dragon. It's not a griffin. It looks like a dragon. It has characteristics of a dragon. I was under the impression that was the problem with it. And now we're, you know, months down the road, and now the issue is with the griffin. It's just a bit confusing for me, especially when, in the language of the city council's proposal, they even gave preference, or not preference, I should say, they gave preference to, you know, griffins being voted on first. That was even, you know, some of the wording in the proposal. So if it was such an issue, you know, back then, which I never heard anybody say the problem was with the griffin. I heard the problem was with our griffin looking like a dragon. You know, and then the wording of, you know, griffins even being considered first, being put into the proposal, that was never brought up as an issue either. So I'm kind of confused and caught off guard by this now. And I don't think a griffin has anything to do with a noose.
Officer, and with all due respect, I don't know how long you've been an officer or your age, but I do want to share that this has been brought up for, even what I'm told, when the patch was first designed, there were protests against it. I was too young to remember that, but I do know that once I became a community activist, it has been brought up, and I've been a community activist for 30 years, and it has been brought up for the last 30 years. So when people say that this is the first time they're hearing about this and, you know, it's never been brought up before, that is totally untrue. Totally untrue.
Excuse me, Cliff Crawford, a lifetime member of Waterloo and a 30-year member of Waterloo Police Department. Yeah, 6 to 8 years I've lived in this city, and in all honesty, Latanya, I've never ever heard of any type of protest on the patch during the years I was a child, a teenager, even as a police officer. Never was there any type of protest at all in the city. I spent a couple of years away from Iowa when I was in the military, but other than that stint, I've been in Waterloo my entire life. And I understand about the riots. I went to East High, I went to Logan. You know, to me, this was never ever an issue growing up. But, you know, I'm just saying what I know in my
Since
perspective.
people are,
Joyce
since people are just
Wilder,
jumping in,
Joyce Wilder actually went to a city council meeting with a bottle of Red Dragon or whatever it is. And on that bottle, the exact emblem on that bottle is exactly what the current patch looks like.
That's not the Waterloo Police Department's fault.
Just because I'm not
Dragon
talking
was
about the
a-
bottle. What I'm talking about is you said that you have not heard of anyone bringing this up.
Mhm.
Well,
The Griffin.
it has been brought up by other presidents of the NAACP and other community leaders. It has been brought up.
It may not have been
If you
public
were
then,
aware of
because I
it,
don't recall.
aware of
We
that,
do
I mean,
have-
there's nothing I can do about you not being aware of it, but it
Yeah.
has been brought up.
And
We
I'm
should
trying
be-
to, can I say something, please? Yes, I
was-
put my hand up about 3 or 4 times. I'm wondering at this point, why do people think the city council voted to change the logo? You know, it seems like there's a selective, you know, memory about that. Why do you think it was voted out?
Because the argument was being presented that it looks like a dragon, which is understandable. I don't agree with it, but I understand when somebody come from when they say that. But now to say that you don't.
Okay, but
Griffin
why?
at all.
Why though? Even if your understanding is that it looked like a dragon, what then would be the reason to do that, except that it was a major problem for a portion of this community to the extent that it moved down the line and was voted on by the city council to change it. It wasn't just because this issue isn't about Griffin or dragon per se. And so what's not needed is a you know, a lesson on the roots of it in Greek mythology or something like that. That's not the point. The point, excuse me, I thought the point was that it had sufficiently been offensive enough to the African American community that enough over time, the issue had been raised again and again, predating me being here. I've been in Waterloo for 30 plus years, and it's always been sort of a sticking point since I've been here. So I have no idea what it was like even before that. But I'm saying over time, it got to the point where it felt that it needed to be addressed. Okay, it was brought to the city council and the Griffin was voted out.
No,
No, that's not correct. Griffin
That's-
wasn't voted out.
Tavis, hand up.
Yeah.
And I would like Dave to chime in on this if he would as well. I was told that the existing badge was offensive to the minority community. I was not told that all Griffins were offensive. I was told this badge because it looked like a dragon and it looked like other KKK symbols. Never in my discussions was I told that a griffin, a truly designed griffin, was offensive. I was told this badge was offensive. And that's the reason I voted to get rid of it, because it was.
Okay, well, this is helping my understanding because what I see now is potato.
David, I don't know, do you want to chime in?
Sure. It's been brought up on a number of occasions that it was a unanimous decision. One council person brought it forward about removing that logo from the patch. It was going to be a 5-2 decision that night to abolish it completely without any forethought on what we were going to do after that fact. And Councilperson Jewin came forward with this amendment to the resolution to work on rebranding, keeping the tradition of the Waterloo Police Department intact by considering the logo of the Griffin, a Griffin first and foremost. And I think the reason it got brought up, the timing was right because of everything that's been going on nationally. And I'm I wasn't in favor of it to begin with. I would have voted no that day, but we would have been out 5-2, and the Griffin would have been gone. I appreciate the fact that Councilperson Jewin had brought that amendment forward so that we could work on this, but I truly believe that the concept was to redesign the brand, giving first preference to a Griffin to maintain that history of the Waterloo Police Department. And that's about all I got to say on that.
So just to sort of, Kendra, I did send over the three, the designs number 22, 26, and 34 with the existing insignia next to it, so you can pull up one file with two images. That was one request that was posted in the chat. Aaron, if you wanted to speak quickly, and then hopefully we can get to a point where we talk specifically on each design once Kendra's able to pull that up.
Thank you, Tavis. This is such a charged issue, and I just wanted to take a moment, because Teresa brought it up, to speak about the swastika, because sometimes I think it's easier to look at metaphors of what we're dealing with than necessarily what's right in front of us. And there's a lesson actually in the swastika that relates very much to what we're dealing with here. And when I talk about the swastika, I want you all to know that I am a Jew and that my grandparents are Holocaust survivors, that we came to this country in 1949 after they survived Auschwitz. So when I speak on the swastika, it's personal, and I understand the meaning of that image and how hurtful it is. But what's interesting about the swastika is that it also has a history, and that history wasn't a malignant history. It's actually an ancient symbol going back to the Sanskrit. And in the Sanskrit, the swastika had the meaning of blessings and protection that would come from all four directions, right? So it started out with this beautiful meaning, and then Hitler came along and took that image and he inverted it and put it up on its point. He changed the location of it. And what he wanted was a symbol that would show his armies marching in all four directions. So very much like the Griffin that we have in front of us, what we have is a symbol with a long history where events impact how we view that symbol. And if we listen to the community side of things, an image that is so similar to the one that is currently on the patch unfortunately maintains the same negative connotations. And I think it's true that the police really like the patch of 26, 22, and 34, because out of the winning, the top designs, without question, it's the most similar to what is already there. Right? So I think it's an important question to ask ourselves, can we just take it one step further? Could we maybe agree on a Griffin, like Teresa said, that does not evoke the same sentiment of the symbol that we have in front of us now? Yeah, the idea of a redesign is that it should be something new, not the same thing except a little bit different, change the color, but the image is very similar. Like, if we're going to rebrand and if we're going to spend the money and make a financial investment, I would like to see something that looks different and is worth the financial investment.
Aaron, would you have any suggestions on how to make the one of those top three Griffins that we have right now? Would you have any suggestions on how to make that more to
Marcus, yeah. we're gonna get into that literally right now. So as soon as Kendra gets that pulled up, because I want us to go through each of these designs in their own merit. I'm not saying that by giving any input on any particular design, you're endorsing it. I'm not endorsing every single one of these designs. I'm not saying I would vote for every single one of these designs. What I am saying is that in the interest of trying to get to some level of guidance for the designers to present something that might be able to garner support, we need to have feedback on each of these designs. So So to your point, Marcus, as we see these two designs next to each other at Teresa's request, and I think it makes sense. What are the things that folks are seeing, frankly, in particular from the non-Griffin folks? What changes really sort of stand out that are effectively required, and even in order to make this
This is Tim. Just to start things on the proposed, whatever number that is. Again, this is a part of me from my past. I like it. I think the yellow needs to be brighter. If you would just make a note of that. I like that the Griffin is approximately the same color as the uniform. The yellow would make it stand out and be more visible. And I think that's important for the safety and well-being of our officers, as well as the public.
Thank you.
I'll piggyback on Tim a little bit just to mess with him. I think we should make it John Deere yellow, but they'd probably have a hard time with that. I don't like the white. To me, white lettering, any white is going to yellow and stain and get dirty. It's just not going to, over time. I mean, the patch I've been wearing, I've probably worn for 15 years and it looks brand new. I think with white, you're not going to have that durability or that length. I think it's going to change colors and get, everybody got those white t-shirts that get kind of ratty looking. I think it'll just dinge and just not be so vibrant years forward, and we'll end up having to replace them more frequently.
I will add that I believe that the feathering on the Griffin and on the one on the left is the design of it is a little it's too aggressive. It's too aggressive. It's too strong. From a design side, I think that lends itself. It is what makes this Griffin resemble the existing Griffin so much, the existing insignia so much. I also would say that the term vigilance, this is a personal preference here, or a personal position, as all these are, that if there is to be any consideration, I think from my vote personally, on a Griffin design, that whether it's this one or a different version, any use of the term vigilance, I think has to be, those two things can't exist on the same design if we're looking in the interest of compromise. I think that's a bridge too far. When we look at the words of commonality, really it was respect and service that were had the most votes or were named the most in terms of our values of what we were looking for in the department. And so I'd rather see those words on any badge, quite frankly, than vigilance.
I do like protecting our community. I don't know if that, that was one of the things I liked when I saw.
Teresa, I'm going to pick on you here. Your thoughts on the Griffin design.
It's not just my thoughts, because I also I'm a human rights commissioner. I work at Unity Point. I work at Mercy One. I mean, I've got 3 full-time jobs. Everyone felt that the shape was too close to the current one.
We have other inputs on that. Things that we like, things we dislike, or we're just going to move on. Move on to.
I too also felt that just looking at it, it's very aggressive, and I like protecting our community, and I did not like vigilance.
And if I have a chance to talk, this is Rhonda.
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to give so much, you know, we're giving up the Griffin. Now it just seems like everybody wants to pull away from the word vigilance. And those are the things that mean the most to the Waterloo police officers that we have and that we had in the past, the retired officers. I mean, the color scheme, I mean, it just seems like everything's trying to get wiped out, and it's taken away. But a lot of people in the community that I've spoke to that are, you know, in their 60s and 70s years old that lived through everything that's gone in the past as far as the riots, and they're the ones that not having a problem with the current Griffin that we have. And it just seems like everybody just keeps trying to take away for what we've been standing for and protecting our community for. And I just don't like people interrupting when someone has a chance to talk. When Cliff was talking, people interrupted. Everybody else is taking their turns of talking. And I just ask everybody to respect everybody's opinion when they are talking. So that's all I got to say.
You know, I would say that you know, certainly this design that we've got in front of us doesn't take a Griffin away. Now it might be a change from the existing. There is going to be a change from the existing insignia. That was the vote however many months ago. The extent of that change is at the determination of this committee. Ultimately, it's at the determination of council, but we'll make a recommendation. And I think it's our job to honor the intent of creating this committee, which was to find some level of consensus and establish a brand for the Waterloo Police Department that reflects all perspectives, not just of officers, retirees, folks from that might have this stance on this design or that stance on that design, but to try to come to some agreement on some shared values. And that's why I specifically spoke up on the term vigilance, because it is not a shared value. It might be a statement or a term that officers have a level of attachment to, but we also have to recognize that same attachment is connotation when it comes to other communities, and this is certainly the term vigilance. I think is one that is going to be difficult to marry, certainly with any Griffin design. Shaviva, you got your hand up.
Yeah, maybe someone can explain to me why the focus is so strongly on, when you say tradition, why the focus is so strongly on this Griffin or any kind of Griffin, and maybe even the word vigilance, when has this always been an element of the Waterloo police insignia? I don't think so. Wasn't there a time when there was not a Griffin on there? I mean, and what about that tradition? I didn't know that it was invested in just a specific image that doesn't really have anything to do with the city of Waterloo. I was sort of, I don't know, encouraged to see emblems that were sort of emblematic of this city specifically, instead of this mythological creature specifically. Somebody please explain to me why, when you think of tradition, that has to be the focal point.
I don't know if there's anyone wants to give a comment there.
Yeah, I'll comment. I'm sorry, I dropped for a minute. I don't know if everybody did. So I don't know that I got it all, and I apologize for that. For some reason, my computer went off and came back on. First time that's ever happened. Law enforcement's always been traditional. A lot of things we do are traditional. And so from the officers that speak, we look to tradition. It's just kind of, the military, law enforcement, service oriented. It's a tradition thing, and that's just kind of how we see things. And not always right, not always wrong. Some traditions are bad. We're all aware of that. So I just think because of the cloth we're cut from, I guess, for lack of a better term, we look to tradition. There's a lot of legacy people in law enforcement and in the fire service whose fathers and fathers and fathers have served. So I think that's probably where the tradition side comes from. My dad wore it, his dad wore it. Now I'm not one of the legacy people, so don't think that, but it's just kind of a tradition, for families and service, and it's probably been that way, and now it's starting to fade a little bit. We're not seeing a lot of that legacy stuff anymore, and some of the traditions are starting to fall by the wayside. So I think that's why a lot of the officers are talking about the tradition of it and the history of it, is because some of our history is getting washed away, or that's what the feeling is anyway. Not that that's the reality, but that is the feeling of the perception.
Were there people who felt that way when the Griffin was introduced?
Well, fortunately, like you, I'm not that old, so I can't answer that. I wasn't here when the Griffin was introduced. Matter of fact, I don't even know that I was born. So that's tough for me to speak to, and it's tough for me to speak to what happened that long ago. It's just it's what the people who came before us wore, and we have respect for the officers that trained us and the people who supervised us. It just kind of runs through the core of the employment or the profession.
Cliff Coffrin, I echo what Major Leibold has said. It's hard, being a retiree and speaking with a lot of retirees. The Griffin has meant a lot. And I think with what's been going on the last year or so with other police departments, you won't find one Waterloo police officer, active or retired, that isn't appalled by the actions of some police officers in our country. We are absolutely appalled at what's going on with the conduct of some officers in some departments. I pray and I'm pretty confident that kind of stuff does not happen in Waterloo. And I know I pride myself, as do many officers, and especially the retirees, in their conduct and how they address themselves during their careers. But I guess I understand that everyone is upset with police in general. And I think that was just some of the feedback and the thing that happened in Waterloo. We were caught up in all of what's happened in our country, unfortunately. And I think a lot of that has to do with why we're where we are today. I mean, sitting down, trying to revise a patch that some people don't like. I mean, I look at that patch as a McDonald's, arch. You look at that arch and you're going to sell hamburgers. You just don't want to change it. Oh, I don't like the way that arch looks. Someone complains about it, and so they make McDonald's change their arch. I just don't see any. I never saw a problem with ours, but if it has to change, it changes. And as a footnote, and I'll shut up, most of the retirees I've spoken with take great pride in the Griffin. And like Ms. Ewan said, I don't know if there's a true Griffin out there. I don't know if someone has the perfect picture of what a griffin is supposed to look like. This was Mr. Bender's interpretation of his griffin back in the time. But the retirees that I've spoken with are pretty strong in saying that if they're going to change this griffin, they would rather have no griffin at all on whatever Waterloo Police patch this committee decides to have the officers wear. And then we'll just retire that griffin, and things will happen as they will. So thank you for listening. I'll be quiet. Thank you.
This is Tim. I know I've already had a chance, and I'm just make a note, a personal note. First of all, I've learned so much in this committee, and I've become so much more aware, and I respect where everyone is coming from. I hope you can respect my particular where I've come from, et cetera, et cetera. I'll just go on record saying I like vigilance included. That's what I want out of a police department above all. And I just was looking at the resolution that started this all, resolution 624 in the opening whereas, what the Waterloo Police Department is committed to, and they would be carrying out their duties, quote, within a framework of service, uncompromising integrity, fiscal responsibility, professionalism, vigilance, and bias-free conduct, unquote. So vigilance is in their mission statement, and personally, that's what I want them to do, whether they're making sure I'm obeying traffic laws or that they're in the hallways of one of our public schools, making sure there isn't bullying going on or whatever. So I'll be quiet for the rest of this chapter.
Sounds good. Well, and I do want to thank you. I just want to make sure. So I'm going to read off. I think what I've got is notes, and if everyone can sort of give it that, yeah, this is the agreement of some direction moving forward, or if we have to exhaust some further conversation. I would like to see my family tonight, so we're going to try to move this a little faster. But the points that I've got: brighter yellow in the background. Do we have any objections there? Have any major objections? Speak now. All right, moving forward. No white lettering. So that would be an instruction to the designer to, currently it says protecting our community, to come up with some other way to, whether it's with yellow or some other treatment. Any major objections there? All right. We've got, there's been a lot of conversation about sort of its proximity to the existing Griffin. Expect this is going to be where it'll get a little hairy, but in the interest of building consensus, can we agree to express to the designer to adjust the Griffin design in a way so it's less tied to the existing?
Is that a motion, Tavis, or I guess I'm not?
Yeah, I guess I'm if there's any major objections on this, sorry. To that question, Spencer, here, I'll just read them all off, and then we can a motion to approve or not.
And this would apply to all those three patches that are similar. This feedback applies to some of that feedback does.
I mean, it's up to the committee. I think in all honesty, we're probably looking at, there's three patches that are almost the exact same. Whatever feedback we give is going to ultimately result in, I'll leave that one up to, I guess, some discussion. I would suggest go ahead and making it basically a top four, right? That we combine the recommendations for 22, 26, and 34. But if there's interest in seeing moving forward with a Red Griffin, in the interest of voting, I guess so. But in the interest of consensus, I can't imagine a scenario where that passes, but I could be wrong. Yeah, Joe, you got your hand up.
Yeah, Tavis, I guess for my own clarification and maybe for the clarification of everyone. So we're going to send this to the artist for some changes, but that doesn't necessarily eliminate the one we're looking at from consideration. So when we get back in March, we may have 4 variations of this patch 1, 4 variations of patch 2, 4 variations of patch 3. If we have, you know, if the artist wants to take the white lettering out and put something else in, if he wants to soften your griffin, you know, so we might have different things we can look at, kind of like when you go to the eye doctor, you know, which one's better, this one or this one? Which one's better, this one or this one? And we should, you know, I don't think we eliminate the one. We just get, okay, this one created these half dozen variations. This one has these half dozen. And then we go through as a group and try to find some common ground amongst the now 4 times 6, 24 patches. You know, and I think we might be better suited to kind of, you know, thumb up, thumb down. You know, this is a hard no for me. This is a hard no for you. Once we get not a bigger pool, but just different looks at the same pool, if that makes sense. Is that kind of what we're going for? Or are we going to try to redesign the patch and then say, okay, here's the new number 1, here's the new number 2, here's the new number 3?
No, I think it's an excellent point that a designer could certainly submit a few variations based off of the feedback. So I'm looking forward to truly mastering Microsoft Excel by the time we get all these votes in. But yeah, I think that's a fair point. So still leave it to the designer. We're narrowing it down, and however the designer decides to proceed, they proceed. So with verbiage, with some comment on each design on WP 34, brighter yellow, no white lettering. We had a statement that folks liked the protecting our community, certainly on the 34. Some comments about too close to the current Griffin and sort of maybe a nod at lessening the aggression on the design element of that Griffin. And then the term vigilance, again, to Joe's point, they could take or leave any of those comments. And we would just have to grade each of the designs that were presented.
Are we wanting, is this Spencer, are we also, I mean, I know we haven't even got to that, but the non-Griffin designs, I mean, we haven't even, I guess I don't know about that artist, and if we're, because I'm ready to make a motion on the Griffin designs, but I guess maybe we could deal with that a little bit later. I know we don't, with the interest of time, we want to try and keep this
sure
minimized.
Yeah, so I guess my preference would be that we would. So what we've been looking at was design 34. Kendra, if you could bring up design 22, actually bring up the design of all 6, so that we can see 22 and 26. Those are the 2 with the red griffins. Based off of the comments that I saw in the results, don't want to necessarily tie hands here, but
so number 22 and number 26, from what I'm seeing, are the exact same thing, but just different colors.
Yep.
So I would make a motion to keep number 22, and now we're just talking about the Griffin patches, to keep number 22 and 34, submit to keep those as they are now and submit to the artist to have 4 different variations of 34 and 4 different variations of 22 for a total of 5 each. I don't know if that was, maybe I said too much, but
Well, do
so
we
keep, sorry, go ahead.
do we want to I might suggest not giving them a number of variations that they have to stay within, right?
Okay,
Depending
that
on the artist.
I would not object to that amendment.
Well, I don't think we want to eliminate anything right now. I mean, we haven't had that discussion. So I mean, I think all
Sure.
3 should stay for now. And he can vary them any way he wants. I agree with Spencer that the top 2 there are pretty much just a color change, but it gives them more room to play, if that makes sense. It gives them a bigger sandbox to use his creativity.
This is Tim with my color thing again, and I liked 26, but I understand what the red does. It's even aggressive for me in the current one. If 26, if you're looking for comments, Tavis, Tim Hurley just say take 26 and make the Griffin yellow, and it doesn't look as feathered and furled and as aggressive as and I'm maybe just not seeing it close enough, but tone it down. But that yellow on the blue background, and I don't know what you do with the white Waterloo police, but would work for me. Just one voice.
Okay, Tavis, so I'll amend my motion. I'll make a motion to submit number 34, 22, and 26 back to the artist for different design variations, not to be limited in number.
Okay. And with some of the note, we can just include the notes for the artist to take into perspective. That's probably the easiest way to do this, as opposed to trying to get everyone to agree on individual design elements. Is that fair?
That's probably the best way to do it.
So the notes that I'll be passing on, this is particularly with 34, is brighter yellow, no white lettering really on any of these. There was a comment of liking the protection or protecting our community phrase. There was a note that there was some concern of too close to current Griffin and would like to see less aggressive styling. There was also, I guess I can probably surmise that there was some appreciation for its, from a different perspective, but some appreciation for its proximity. Is that fair enough to say? Just trying to be as inclusive here as possible. And then some discussion around the concept of removing or replacing the term vigilance, not making it a requirement, but acknowledging the discussion. Is that accurate for all the parties here? Not saying it's how you want to see this thing end. I'm saying, is it an accurate depiction of the conversation?
Yes.
I would agree, yes.
All right. Cool. So we cranked through half of them. We shortened our meeting by a little bit. That's all right. All right. So the next one up, let's take 107. Kendra, if you can pull that one up. This also has some nods to a Griffin. But this is from a different designer. This is from the same designer as design 109 for all you kids keeping track at home. So thoughts, concerns, suggestions on this particular design of what we would like to note in our comments back to the designer.
I'd like to eliminate the white. I don't like the white. And maybe gold, I don't know. Again, I can't match my own clothes, more or less color schemes. I'll leave that to the artist. But change out that white, maybe makes the trim around the outside so it separates it from the blue of the uniform, so it stands out. A lot of the blue patches have, you know, a gold ring around them to make it so you can see it and you realize it's there and it's visible. So I'd say eliminate the white and try to make it pop off the blue shirt a little better.
You could take everything that's white and make it a bright yellow and it might work. Just a comment to pass along to the artist.
Tim back to his John Deere yellow.
Yes, sir. The reason is that yellow with that dark navy blue or whatever we call it is it is a fact that that contrast is extremely visible to the human eye. And I'm getting back to you know, a twilight or an early morning or a dark alley or something. I want my police department members to be visible and recognizable. This looks too much like a mall cop thing to me.
Do we have other comments?
Kendall, this Rhonda, if it can stay close to the colors that we have right now to take a look at it, maybe something will pop, but if they could do that. Just because, like I said, when you're working a sports events or large crowd event, it's easier to find another officer in the crowd with the colors that we're used to.
Any other comments here?
Davis, I'd just like to know, you know, from Latanya or Shadiva or Teresa or Aaron, if the colors of this patch were the same as our existing colors, is that not enough change or is that enough change? What are your thoughts on that?
Actually, I had hoped to not see any kind of griffin at all, but if there's going to be one, this one, I don't like it. I just think it's more of a change than the other one was. Just to me a rehash of the same thing. Like why are we going through this discussion for it to stay exactly the same? But that's, I don't know.
I guess for me, I guess I'm not sure what bird it is. I mean, I guess looking at that, I would not know it was a griffin. So if someone told me it was an eagle, I'd probably believe them. Someone said it was a peacock, I might believe them. I mean, I would not know that this is a griffin at all.
Well, actually, a griffin is an eagle and a lion. So I don't like the colors at all.
The current colors or the color of the patch or the design of our current patch?
The current colors that I don't like the current colors.
Of this patch number 10 whatever, or you don't like the current Waterloo PD colors?
I don't like the current colors on this patch that we're looking at right now.
Thank you.
This is Cliff. I'm sorry, that patch just doesn't do anything for me. And if I were to see it on a police officer, I don't know. Just I don't know. It's just me. It doesn't do anything for me. Sorry. My opinion.
Like Rhonda said, you know, interrupting people, and I was in the middle of a word. However.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was such a long pause. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. My apologies.
Yellow. Okay. Yellow would make it more vibrant, but the current colors, it doesn't do anything for me.
Fair, thank you.
All right. I think this was in, starting to go through the So yeah, there were some notes on this design about the colors that it was didn't quite pop enough. I'm certainly hearing that again. I might make a recommendation that we replace the word police with Waterloo so that it's a little bit more pronounced, and maybe even just flip Waterloo and police, or potentially even remove the phrase. There was a couple of comments. There was one comment, particularly about the motto in this design, the ever vigilant. The member didn't care for that. I would tend to agree with that statement. So maybe some consideration of different wording. Do we have any other?
Just a final note on this one from Tim, and I should have mentioned it earlier. I don't know what the star is supposed to signify. So that would be a question to the designer.
Yeah.
I think it would be easy to change the colors on this one to make it work. But Tavis, help me out. Was this the one that had the high score? Was this the only design that had a high score from both sides?
Correct. This was the only one that was in the top 10 for both from both sides.
Both sides. Okay, so this is like really the consensus Griffin pick in front of us. How do we feel if the color changes were more to the police's liking? Could we get around the one patch that scored high for both sides?
Yeah, I definitely think that once we've got something in front of us that would merit a strong conversation for sure. Any other thoughts in particular about this design? I'm going to read off what I've got.
Hey, Davis,
yeah.
One last thing. My only issue with it is that for me, there's no body to the griffin. It kind of seems like a headless creature to me, and that's all I have.
And we don't know if the artist could be depicting an eagle here. Like we don't know if there is sort of a Griffin intent here. So we'll see what they come back with revisions. I just want to recap the notes that I've got down. If I'm missing something, if I've misstated, please let me know. Eliminate the white elements of this design. Add gold or that yellow color, certainly around the edge to ensure that it pops from the uniform. Perhaps replace the yellow, or perhaps use the yellow to replace the white. Perhaps closer to the current color palette of the existing insignia. Adjust the color palette. So we're hearing a lot on color. Consider different wording in sort of that motto section. Consider flipping Waterloo and police to make that Waterloo more significant. Just maybe an artist note on what the star signifies. And just a note that there is no body, sort of giving true claim to what this particular creature is, if it is intended to be a griffin. I don't know if the artist will answer that one for us, but we can certainly add it to the notes, and hopefully we'll get some deeper context of the design. So,
Davis, I just want to throw one more thing. Yeah, I told you when we talked earlier that 1868 thing has kind of grown on me. And I wonder if he could add that somewhere, or she could add that somewhere in the design. you know, maybe in place of the star or below Waterloo or police or whatever, just that 1868, that has meaning. Like Tim said, I don't know what that star means, but 1868 is when the city was founded. I think that has meaning for us, and back to some tradition and a little more root based. So just kind of see if something like that, and I'll leave that to the group. If everybody says, Joe, you're crazy, that'd look dumb, I'm completely fine with that. But I just, something like that's kind of grown on me as I've looked at these patches over the last week.
Well, I think to the point that has been made a couple times, that departmental appreciation for history, just sort of within departmental culture. That's a subtle nod that is certainly worth adding to the discussion notes that we can pass on to the designer, and they can do with it as they wish. All right, next up. Yeah.
I'm just going to echo Joe. I was thinking the same thing. He just said it. So I was thinking something was missing there, and if it could be the 1868.
Mm-hmm.
Great minds.
There we are. All right. Next up, we've got the WPD 59. All right. I will pull up some of the notes that we had, if we had any from this design. The one note that we did have was removing the term bridging the divide. And then the other note was that this is a somewhat busy design. I would add that when trying to do an embroidery of this design, it would have to be scaled down, especially in that bridge depiction, in order to get everything accurately. But any other thoughts on this one?
Mr. Hall.
Yeah.
There was some feedback that I received on how exactly the water, the divisions in the bridge and the sky, how exactly that would translate into an embroidered patch, if how good that could really look, how detailed that could be. The bridging and the divide statement, that was also met with some disagreement on that. And just the 4th Street bridge designs didn't garner a whole lot of interest from myself or my peers. But as far as this one goes, not obviously endorsing it one way or the other, I would say that I would have concerns on the details of the bridge and the sky and the water breakdown and on that.
I'll echo my no white color, and there's a lot of white in this design.
Yeah.
The words, the bridge, and as Tavis pointed out, this design is so detailed. He's got the globes on the light poles. I mean, there's this incredible detail on this. It's amazing, but will not show up on a patch.
I think we should suggest that we remove the word police and put in city council. It'd be a terrific, all things considered logo for the Waterloo City Council.
And they can wear uniforms to the council meetings.
Yeah, this should go on all the letterheads and everything. It's a beautiful design, folks. And
Can I vote no?
No, I'll get back to being straight here. This, I think everybody recognizes it's with the detail in this thing, it just is in danger of coming off very poorly in an embroidered patch.
Actually didn't have a problem with it. I had a problem with bridging the divide, and that wording, in my opinion, needs to change. the coloring, but as far as the overall design, because 1868, service, respect, protect were my thoughts. Thank you.
Latanya, can you expand on your bridging the divide is not real popular here either. So I kind of want your perspective as how you see it and why you don't care for it.
Well, we already know that there has been a divide, and we've been working on bridging that divide for as long as I can remember. So it's like, in my opinion, like you're just continuing to slap us in the face with, there's a divide, you know, and so changing that, and again, to something, even protecting our community. I would rather see those words in there than bridging the divide.
Well, that's something that everybody here kind of thought too, is kind of exactly what you said. You're kind of just, we know it's there, we work on it every day, but you're kind of pounding it into us all the time, you know, every day. And they kind of agreed with you on that, which I find interesting because we all look at the world a little differently. And on that particular point, we agree wholeheartedly.
And if I could add to that, we think we're going to do that. Like, that is our goal. So do we want this on a patch in 20 years from now? So.
Yeah, Cliff, I echo what Latanya said. We don't need the bridging the divide. That patch, it's there. I like the bold lettering. Yeah, the inside of the patch with the bridge and stuff, something has to be done with that, but it's definitely identifiable if you if you are a police officer. So my opinion. Thank you.
Any concern with it's sort of, yes, we've got sort of a detail issue that it might be too fine of detail within that sort of arch bridge depiction. Any other concern, especially under the word police? There seems like a lot of words that it just gets a little too cluttered. I don't know if that's just a me or if anybody else picked up on it.
I have some problems with this design. I agree that it's beautifully detailed, but I also agree that the image itself is problematic, and that's what we're looking to change, right? We are looking for a new brand, a new image. And what this badge kind of gave us was an essay on Waterloo Police and bridging the divide since 1868 with service, vigilance, and respect. It's impossible to get all of those words on there. And instead of a stark branded image, what we got was an essay. I'm trying to imagine this image pulled out, right, and put on the car. Like, it's an awkward, what is that going to look like on the car? There's almost like no end to the image itself. And it's a beautifully designed patch, but we didn't need to redesign all the words. Like, what we needed was an image. And I just don't know that this delivers in that way.
Shaviva, you got your hand up.
Yeah, probably not surprisingly, but I liked this one best of every one of them that I saw. But that said, I didn't like the bridging the divide. I think that needs to go. And I think it's too busy with as many words as that are on there. And while I might not personally prefer to see vigilance on there, along with service and respect, that works for me a whole lot better. The Waterloo and the police are just really stark. And to me, if those bands were made a little bit smaller to give a little bit more room inside that arch to do something more, I don't know, up close and personal with the bridge, that probably could work better. And if the yellow was, get rid of the white, and punch up the yellow. So.
I don't know if you read it, but I put remove the bridge, remove bridging the divide, keep service and respect, and of course the year.
I know that we had some consensus on keeping the year. Is that one that we want to just sort of say to all of the designs that may want to consider the inclusion of that phrase? Is that fair enough to say? Seemed like there was some good vibes on it. So what I've got written down in notes is a strong suggestion to remove bridging the divide, no white. So to replace that, scale down the detail on the bridge, the clouds and the water, and just a note that there's too much detail overall in the design. Fewer words, and perhaps just leave that up to the artist on which ones to keep. I heard a few different variations there, with perhaps a smaller band with regards to Waterloo and police, and to punch up the yellow. Anything else on that one that we need to make note of? Did I get those right?
Sounds good.
Cool. So we'll now move over to design. It's our last one then, 109. And in the notes that I've that were in the that were left in the scoring rubric, the term community proud looks like the name of the police department. Would change the color to gold around the blue, around the bridge. Presumably that would change the light color blue. The blue is dark, and there was concern about the bridge in general. Waterloo was not visible enough, and there was a note that there was a potential conflict with the Waterloo Community Foundation registered trademark. I didn't want to speak specifically to that one. I actually chatted with someone who does a professional copywriter and trademarker. This wouldn't be an issue on this design. The angles on the Community Foundation bridge are pretty. That logo is pretty specific, and because this is a community asset, it's a little harder to straight up trademark every depiction of the bridge from a certain perspective. But
that said, Tavis, as this is Tim again, and as past chair and still on the board of the Waterloo Community Foundation, if we would get down to this one, I would like the courtesy extended that I could take that to the board and to our legal counsel, because I do see similarities.
Sure. Do we have some additional comments here on design 109?
Tavis, this is Rhonda. I'm just not a big fan of this one at all. It's just my thought, my opinion is all.
Sure. Do you have any suggestions on how to edit it?
No, I just don't like any of it really.
Okay.
The whole design. That's, like I said, it's just my opinion.
Sure. Well, yep. Just trying to figure out how we can. We took the top 6 as voted by the committee, and just trying to provide some recommendations or suggestions or
Yeah, I know it's supposed to probably be East Fourth Street Bridge, but to me, it looks more like a cage or a kennel or a jail cell. So I don't like it.
Okay, do we have any other design? Dave, I don't know if you, Boson, is that a hands up that I see?
Yeah, yes, sir. And I just wanted to make a comment because I've had more people in the public on any of the designs that had the 4th Street Bridge on it. I personally love the 4th Street Bridge. It's an iconic symbol for Waterloo, but they keep bringing up a comment that one of our past city council members used to describe it. They really don't feel it should be on our arm. So that's just what I'm hearing from the public. That's not my opinion of it because I absolutely love the bridge.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that past city council member,
No,
wanted
let
off.
me clarify. It was not a city council member that said that. It was a member of the Black Hawk County Gaming Association, an architect in town, that made that comment, not a city council member.
No, but our city council member brought it up that that's what was said about that bridge.
But not by a council member.
At a meeting. I'm just going to say that's the mindset of some people, and I hate to see that. But thank you for your time.
Davis, I'd like to get rid of the white and put a gold band.
Thank you.
It's got to come off the uniform better than that. That light blue, I don't think will show up.
Yeah. Dave, do you still have your hand up? Oh, okay, sounds good. Aaron, I see your hand up.
With all the people that I spoke to, what I found really interesting was whether people like the bridge design or not, community proud was the slogan or the phrase that people seemed the most drawn to from the people that I spoke to. So I don't know, this is the designer who did the one that had the consensus, right? So that might even be interesting to see about taking this particular phrase, if people like this phrase, which the people I spoke to really did, and maybe even mixing that up a little bit too. Just a thought.
Tim.
I appreciate everyone's comments. I just throwing in that I'd like Rhonda, this one does absolutely nothing for me. It's just blah.
Davis, for me, I didn't have a problem with it. I just didn't like the colors. And I would switch Waterloo and police around and then change the colors. And add, of course, the year.
Joe.
Piggyback off Latanya there for a second. What if we took Waterloo Police, put it where Community Proud was, like our existing patch, it's kind of arced over, and then the Community Proud could go down kind of on the angles, and then 1868 maybe in the middle. I mean, now I'm actually designing a patch, which is definitely not my wheelhouse, but I think that might make it a little more, and again, I don't like the color. I think it's too dull. I think it needs to shine a little bit, but I think that's something we could look at.
Tim, do you have your hand up again?
No, I don't have Tavis, sorry.
Okay. You're good. You're good. All right. So in terms of directions, to give this designer on this particular design, remove the white, add a gold band around at a minimum. Change colors has been a suggestion. Switch Waterloo and police and add the year, or Waterloo Police as the arched text and Community Proud underneath. And do I have any other sort of
It's
design?
1868.
Yeah, and add 1868 on it somewhere. Any other thoughts on those? Any additions, corrections?
No, Tavis, just real quick, I'm good with the 6 and I like how we're doing it. Since we are going back to the artists, could we ask them for what they think it would look like on a squad car?
Yeah.
You know, whether, you know, right now we just have the red Griffin. We don't have our patch on the squad car. I'd like to give people with some talent some sort of leeway to say, how do you extend this out onto the squad car? I mean, you don't have to just slap the patch on the door. You can make it more visually pleasing than that. And they obviously have the talent to do it. So if we could ask them just, I mean, they don't have to put a lot of time into it. Just pick one of their designs and tell us how they translate that to a squad car.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Perfect. Do we have any other notes on these designs? We've wrapped up the 6, so. All right. So we'll reach out to the designers this week. Let me just looking at my calendar here. Reach out to designers this week. Give them 2 weeks to square this up. Have it back to you all, hopefully, sometime around the 1st, maybe give or take a day or two. And our next meeting at this would be March 10th at 3 o'clock. Any major objections by committee members?
No, that sounds good. I do want to thank everybody for their input today. It's
Yeah.
not an easy topic, and many of you really put your hearts into it. I really do appreciate it from everybody. I mean, everybody's really, it's kind of a sensitive topic for us, and obviously a sensitive topic for you guys. And I do appreciate your time, and I know this has not been easy for anyone, so thank you.
All right. Well, with that,
Bye, everybody.
we'll see you on the 10th.